Okay, so Fusion 360 introduction. We're going to dimension out some basic parts, create some components in Fusion 360. You've got your basic parts worksheet that you're going to be using to create these models. We're working on part number one. So the first thing, this is part number one. Each grid box is 0.5 of an inch. And so the dimensions that I'm using in this video, which we talk about in class, are going to be half-inch grid. So half an inch, 1 inch, 1.5 inch, 2 inches, 2.5 inches, 3 inches, 3.5 inches. So this part would be 3.5 inches by 2.5 inches in its overall dimensioning. So now we're going to go into Fusion 360. And when you get into Fusion 360, this is going to be essentially what you guys are going to see. And so when we're in our Fusion 360, walk you around a little bit, and we're moving to Fusion 360 because it's much more robust. There's a lot more that we can do with it. You're going to find that once we get into it, it's going to be a lot easier than the Onshape, and it's just going to have a lot more fun things that we can do. So the first thing when we're moving around, you have your origin point, which is going to be always right here, kind of center of where we're at. If you ever get lost or get stuck, if you come up here to the top right, hit this house button, it'll always take you home, which will center on your model and give you the top right and front view, your isometric view. We can rotate our views by clicking on the different sides of the cube at the top. We can also go back to our home. If I want to zoom in, I scroll my center mouse wheel. If I go, I can zoom in my center mouse scroll wheel. If I want to pan, I click and hold my center mouse wheel, and that will allow me to pan my camera up, down, left, and right. And if I hold down the left shift key and click in my center mouse wheel, that gives me my orbit command. And I also see they're lighting up at the bottom. You can select them also down at the bottom to turn your different commands and things on for your model. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to get into a bunch of these different things, but your left mouse button is going to be to select things, and your right mouse button brings up kind of your quick menu of some really cool things that you can do. So this is going to where it makes it a lot easier to help get us what we need done in our model. So across the top, we've got different things that we can do. We can create new designs, we can create animations, we can create new drawings from our designs, our multi-view drawings, all kinds of good stuff that we can do. Our create menu up here, you've got your quick toolbar for your quick launch stuff, but then if you click in here, you've got all kinds of different things that you can create. We'll get into the automation and the assemblies, which is going to be some really cool stuff that we can do. But first, what we're going to do is open up our data panel and get you guys into some good practices. So in your data panel is where you'll see all of your projects and parts and things that you've got created. Now, the first thing that we want to do is you want to create a new project, and it's a great idea to get your project to create a project anytime you're working on something new, so that you can keep everything organized. And so what I want you to do is create a new project, and I've created one called Learn 360. So just click on this button that says New Project and call it Learn 360. And so when you click into this, you've created your project. Now I've got my project folder. And within this project folder, I can create subfolders to organize things. And so all of our things that we're going to do when we're learning 360, we're going to put into here. And so this is going to be our basic part collection. So we're going to have 11 parts in our basic part collection. So you're going to go in and create a new folder. And in this folder, you're going to call it basic parts. And so that's going to be your basic parts collection. So when we get into our basic parts collection, I've already created, just kind of get us set up, part one for us of what we're going to do. And so what you're going to do is, the first thing we're going to do is up here to part one, you're going to go up here to file, and you're going to go down and hit save because it's an unsaved part. And when you hit this save button, what you're going to see is it's going to give you you first name your part, where do you want to save it, and then it'll say version 0 because that's going to be your first version of your part. What you can do is every time you hit save, it saves it as a new version to help you show the changes throughout your part. And so I've already created this, and I'm on version 1 to show you guys, but we're going to save and create this part. Now, we don't necessarily have to do it for this one because we're not going to assemble or put anything together, but I want you guys to get in the habit of making your parts as components, because when we do create our assemblies, we want to make sure that all of our components fit together nicely. So think of it like a Lego building system. each brick is a component. When we combine those two components, or three components, or four components, we can make something awesome. And you're going to make some really cool projects in here. So we're going to have to do that with our assemblies. So the first thing that we've got is we're going to go in and we're going to go here and we're going to say create a new component under our assembly. And so we can come under this or click on this button, quick tool here. So I'm going to go into the down menu and I'm hit new component, and I'm going to call this component part one. Okay. And I'm going to hit OK. And I've got now a new part in my component that I'm going to create. Now, what I can do is I can turn, just like I did with everything else, I can hide with my camera. Down here at the bottom, I can close out my, now that I know where I'm saving everything, I can close out my data panel so I can see everything full. What's really neat here under my document settings, if this is my browser bar, so if I click on this document says I can see stuff, I can change my default unit. So I want to make sure that I'm in inches. If I'm not, I can change it. My default right now is as inches, but if I wanted to change it to say millimeters, meters, or whatever it is, I can also change to select that as my default. Much easier than going in through how we did with the Onshape. And so I've got my part right here. And so just like what we did, and there's going to be a lot of similarities. Now our timeline is still going to be down here along the bottom, and you're going to see this start to fill up, show lots of cool stuff as we go through here. So I'm going to create a new sketch. So I've got my new sketch. Again, personal preference where you want to put it. I'm going to put this on the front plane and I'm going to work my way in. So I'm going to go to the front plane. You notice it changes our view. We can change our line type super easy right in here with our construction lines. Lots of different things that we can do here. So I've got my view here. My grid is even set up to give us some dimensioning right onto our grid. I'm going to add my 2-point rectangle to start. So I'm going to click once to turn my tool on. I'm going to always start at my origin point. So we want to get in the habit of starting at our origin point for our part. So I'm going to click once to drop my rectangle. I'm going to bring it out. Now I'm not going to click anything yet. I'm just going to start to dimension this out. So you notice that I'm already in there and I can kind of get to see what it is. I know the width from looking at my measurement is 3.5. I hit the tab key to get to my length is 3.5. My width is 2.5. So I'm going to make it length 3.5 by 2.5. I'm going to hit the enter key and it's going to drop my rectangle in here. Now, one thing that's neat with this is if I hit my left mouse button, it'll keep my rectangle tool on. But if I hit the enter key, it turned my rectangle tool off so I can get into something else. Now, there's a couple of ways that we can do this. I could, if I was doing this from the floor, I could dimension this up and start to build and continue to add things. I'm going to show you kind of what I like to do with some of my parts, which is called the subtractive method. So I'm going to also figure out what is it that I need to take out. So I'm going to add in another rectangle up here. So I'm going to click to turn my rectangle on. I'm going to start at the opposite corner because I'm going to take out pieces. So if I zoom in, you can kind of see when I come up here how it changes to know I'm right at the corner. So I'm going to click on my corner. I'm going to bring my corner in. I'm going to start to drag it in. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so I know that for this next one, my width is 2.5 inches by 1.5 inches. And I'm going to hit the enter key so that I've got my second shape here. So I've got my two rectangles here. Now remember, I'm on the front face. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, I can push pull this out. So if I want to, I can finish the sketch to extruder while I'm right in here. What I can do is I'm going to pull this out. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to do my press pull or extrude. They're the same thing. So what I want to do, so I'm going to press pull. I'm going to select my face. If I rotate my view a little bit so I can kind of see where I'm going with it, I can change the direction that I want it to go. And I can pull this out to see where it is that I want to go. Or I can just bring this back and forth to show kind of which way I'm going with it. And I'm going to go in 2.5 inches. Now what you notice here, what's really cool with this, if we look at this on this front, is see I've got this other rectangle, but because I didn't select it, it's subtracting that part out of it. So it's only doing this kind of L shape that I've got here. So I've kind of made it so that instead of doing where I extrude just this block up, then I create and I add the piece onto here and extrude this block up, I just created here to get everything. Now, if I was extruding the other, I could change this and say, okay, this is not a new body. I want to join it so it's all one piece. So I'm going to so I've extruded this out. So I've kind of saved myself 2 steps. So when I hit the enter key, there's my first kind of L shape for our model, right? And so you can kind of see what we've got here. and I've got the base of it. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out the top part of basic part 1. So I'm going to add in a new sketch. So I'm going to create a new sketch. I'm going to click right here on the face because I'm going to add it right on the face. I'm going to zoom up here, and so I'm going to add in my 2-point rectangle again. Make sure that I want to be on my line because I'm cutting out right from the top. So same thing, I can see when it gets to the top. I'm going to click right on the top line. I'm going to drag this over, and this top rectangle is going to be 2.5 inches wide, and it's going to be 1.5 inches deep. Right, is going to be what my uh, yeah, 0.5 inches. So this is going to be 0.5 inches. I'm sorry, 0.5 inches deep. I got this wrong. I got to get my measurements right. 0.5 inches deep, and it's going to be 1.5. 1.5. Make sure I get my dimensions right. So it's going to be 1.5 inch wide, half an inch deep. I'm going to hit the Enter key to save that block. Now I've got it here. Now one thing, and I've done this a couple times when I forgot, I want to dimension this out to make sure that it's exactly half an inch from it. So I'm going to go back up here to my dimension, and I'm going to dimension from this line to this line. I'm going to pull it up, and I'm going to hit my mouse button, and I'm going to make it 0.5 inches. So that's going to move it exactly 0.5 inches. Okay. Now, what I can do here is if I hit finish sketch, so now I finished the sketch. Now, this is, I've kind of shown you here, so I've got my sketch here. Now I can do my extrude or push pull. So what I can do here is I'm going to do my create, and I'm going to show you different. I'm going to hit the extrusion. I'm going to click on the face that I want to extrude. I'm going to hit the minus key, which will change change it to take away. And I know that this is, if I do 1 inch, right, it'll do 1 inch, it'll take it away because I know that's what the width of it is. Or I can drag my block back there, and I'm going to hit the Enter key, and I have just subtracted out or extruded out the piece that I've got there. And then the last piece for shape 1, we're going to create a new sketch. I'm going to come onto this, I'm going to do it right here on the top. So we're doing our orthographic, so it always jumps us right into that top-down view. I'm going to add my rectangle again, make sure I'm on this edge line because I want to bring it in. I'm going to dimension this last one out, which is going to be, it is going to be 1.5 wide, 1.5, and then my width on this is going to be 0.5. And I'm going to hit the Enter key to select it. And then I have to make sure that I dimension out from one end to the other, and it's exactly 1 inch. So I'm going to dimension from this one, from this edge here to here is going to be 1 inch. Right, and so that's going to put it right there in the middle. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish my sketch. I am going to do my extrusion again, so I can do my extrusion or hot code E or hot command E. I'm going to drag this one down, so I'm just going to take this one to drag it down to the bottom. I'm going to hit the Enter key, and this would be our basic part number 1. So we are done with basic part number 1. So I've got everything set up for basic part number 1. I've got my timeline across the bottom here, so if I needed to go back in and change anything, I can click right onto this timeline, which makes it super easy. So I can go back in to fix things that I want. When I'm done here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the Save button. I'm going to save this one, version description. I'm going to make this final part 1, right? And I'm going to make this a milestone, and we're going to say finished. So finished. And there it is. So now I've got my version history on it. So I've got my part, everything is set, and my part is saved for me with the version that I've got with it. And so that would be how we create basic part number 1 for Fusion 360.